So I want to welcome Chairman Cruz with Behind the Walls Committee at DARE and the co-founder of the formerly incarcerated Union of Rhode Island to come talk to us about that kind of stuff and the work she's doing. So please.
We're going to keep warm, right? That's how we do it. For those of you who don't know, FIU is a nonprofit organization founded and led solely by people formerly incarcerated with past felony convictions. As directly impacted leaders, we know that those closest to the problem are closest to the solutions, but furthest from the resources. So we do believe that we're all stronger together in breaking down these barriers of the criminal and justice system so we can live free and thrive here in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, the number of people who are directly impacted is well over 26,000, and this is not including those no longer under community supervision, but living with past felony convictions for as long as decades ago. Once a person is incarcerated, they're subjected to traumatic experiences daily, such as the wide use of solitary confinement that only works to exacerbate trauma for the sole purpose to break the human spirit, mind, body, and soul. These are the human rights violations experienced by our loved ones behind the walls daily. And this is why we must continue to fight. When we talk about decarceration, this does not include expanding community corrections and surveillance, or turning our communities into extensions of the prison system. Rhode Island already leads the nation with the 6th highest rate of community corrections for probation and parole, and the 4th highest probation supervision alone. Once a person leaves those walls, they should be able to access the freedom to live, work, and access all the basic needs necessary to live and thrive. This current forced prison revolving door is why we continue to fight. The profit and poverty tactics of probation, parole, and court debt is why we must continue to fight. Yes. Once our loved ones are released, they are not fully free due to community corrections. They are faced with economic and housing injustices, barriers to health care, education, and basic needs that not only affects the person, but their families, the neighborhoods, and the state as a whole. 55% of these men and women incarcerated are parents. 51% of men and 66% of women are unemployed when they're incarcerated. And the majority when released face constant housing instability. We are fighting to put people's needs over further investments in prisons, such as closing High Side. This is why we must continue to fight. Yes. When a pandemic hits and we need a Rhode Island Supreme Court ruling to release just a handful of our loved ones who have less than 90 days to serve on a sentence, this is how we know we must continue to fight. FIU is currently working to fight voter disenfranchisement. When a recent FIU review found over 100 people currently being held at the ACI that are registered and eligible to vote, but there is no formal coordinated process in place to access that right to vote. This again reminded us, this is why we must continue to fight. This was a law that was passed back in 2006, but yet there is still no formal process to ensure those individuals who are eligible can vote. As I share this, keep this in mind. Rhode Island incarceration rates remain 8 times higher for Black residents and 2.5 times higher for Latino residents than for white residents. And when compared to the national rates, we are much higher when it comes to these disparities. So don't get it twisted. We know what these barriers and disparities are to address and to affect. We know it's our Black, Native American, and Latino residents here in Rhode Island. We cannot pretend we do not know that these systems and these barriers disproportionately impact. And this is why we must continue to fight. issues were here long before this election and this current administration, and why we must continue to move forward and work diligently to uplift our directly impacted loved ones. We are asking all of you to continue to fight and advocate for dismantling these discriminatory systems and work towards creating a system that is built to meet people's needs instead of one that is built on punishment and exclusion. Yes. So we're just asking, please join FIU, Behind the Walls, Working Family Parties, Sunrise, Showing Up for Racial Justice, and the many other dedicated organizations and fellow Rhode Islanders here as we continue to fight for the human rights of all Rhode Islanders. And that is why we must continue to fight. Thank you.